A reading from the Gospel according to John. 6 days before the Passover, Jesus came to Bethany, the home of Lazarus, whom he had raised from the dead. There they gave a dinner for him. Martha served, and Lazarus was one of those at table with him. Mary took a pound of costly perfume made of pure nard, anointed Jesus' feet, and wiped them with her hair. The house was filled with the fragrance of the perfume. But Judas Iscariot, one of his disciples, the one who was about to betray him, said, "Why was this perfume not sold for 300 denarii and the money given to the poor?" He said this not because he cared about the poor, but because he was a thief. He kept the common purse and used to steal what was put into it. Jesus said, "Leave her alone. She bought it so that she might keep it for the day of my burial. You always have the poor with you, but you do not always have me." When the great crowd of the Jews learned that he was there, they came not only because of Jesus, but also to see Lazarus, whom he had raised from the dead. So the chief priests planned to put Lazarus to death as well, since it was on account of him that many of the Jews were deserting and were believing in Jesus. And so we come on this Monday in Holy Week, where we are beginning again that walk towards the cross along with Jesus, taking steps with him, slowing down time, and being with him in the last days and hours of his life, his earthly ministry on earth. To understand what is going on in this story, we need to know a few things. We need to remember that it was about a week before this that Jesus was with this same family, with the sisters, Mary and Martha, as he came and raised their brother Lazarus from the dead, brought him out of the tomb after 4 days. And it was in that great sign of glory in the revelation that Jesus had a divine nature that he set himself on an inexorable path of clashing with the religious and political authorities of his day. And so this conversation here in the story we've just heard from John's Gospel takes place in the shadow of life, the shadow of a great revelation. It also takes place in the shadow of death, because Jesus knows that he has set himself on a path that is only going to end one way, and he is set on that path and about to accomplish it, as he says in the Gospel of John. So the shadow of life, the shadow of death. Another thing that's helpful to know is that the 300 denarii that Judas Iscariot is complaining about is about 1 year's salary. So in some ways, he's right to be a bit scandalized by Mary's choice to make such an extravagant gesture, such a costly gift, and such an outrageous display of her love. It wasn't seemly. And this is where today's gospel hits me, is that on this Monday, going into Holy Week in the year 2020, we too are living in the shadow of death. We know people who have died. We know that there will be more who will die. We just don't know who they are. We worry for ourselves. We worry for our loved ones, our families, our friends, those in our church community, and indeed for all those in this whole global community who are suffering. It casts a long shadow, and it has the ability to paralyze us. It has the ability to make us smaller than what we normally are. And so today's gospel text with Mary and her extravagant gift speak to me in a particular way. They speak to me about how it is that we are to live in the shadow of death. We can choose to go smaller, or we can choose to go deeper and bigger and more deeply into the love of Christ, the love of God that sustains us, and the love of one another. Each one of us has something we have stashed away, just as Mary stashed away this incredibly expensive perfume. Something that we've stashed away just for a rainy day or for when that time comes, whatever that time is. I think that this gospel text is challenging me to look around and ask, what am I waiting for? What am I saving? My love, my goods, my precious things, what am I saving them for? If not to spend on those that I love. So as we continue on in this week, I invite you to think about how Jesus invites us to spend ourselves in love, to spend ourselves with extravagance while we have the ones that we love near us, for we will not always have them. And to know that Christ is with us wherever we are, whether we are together or whether we are apart, whether we are with loved ones nearby or whether we are alone in our homes for a time. We all have gifts that God has given us. We all have precious things to give one another. May Mary show us how it is that we might spend ourselves in love. Amen.